Hey Alexander, Mr. Finesti again. Okay, I know you mentioned yesterday you also were having some problems with the Timberland Trap challenge. Okay, so let's just go through that as well. So they're asking us to defeat munchkins and ignoring throwers. So the throwers are over here, obviously, at the four corners. So there's a certain distance between them and our hero, which we can deal with in the code. Okay, you're going to define a function in your code. Okay, so I'm going to use that def keyword. You're going to defeat all the munchkins while ignoring the throwers, as I said before, and you're going to use the cleave method, okay, to make sure that the munchkins don't swarm you in large groups. So we'll be going back and forth between cleave and attack. So we're going to need to use a function, and we're going to have to use some conditional statements too, if statements in this concept challenge. So let's take a look. I'm going to start it. Now, they're not giving any code. They want you just to code this right from scratch. So the first thing we're going to do is work on our function. So we're going to need to use the keyword def, and we're going to have to come up with some kind of a name. I don't know. Maybe I'll call it cleave or attack. I'll just come up with a name. Doesn't really matter. And I'm going to use a parameter. I'm going to come up with my own parameter. I'll call it enemy, but you can call it whatever you want. You can call it X, you can call it target, you can call it Joe, you can call it Charlie, I don't care. I'm going to call it enemy because it makes the most sense. Okay, and then I'm going to, what they want me to do, we're going to have to define a while loop. Okay, so let me think about this. Let me think how I'm going to do this. Okay. Probably, maybe the best way to do this would be to just simply, I'll define it in my function. I'm going to assume that I found an enemy in my while loop, and I'll get into that in a little more detail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, in my function, the only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check the distance to my target. So if I get an enemy, I want to make sure that he's within a certain range because I don't want to attack these throwers over here. I want to just kind of keep the range in here. I don't want to get too close to them either because then they'll start throwing things at me, which is, they can cause a lot of damage. So I want to kind of keep them in this area here. So maybe I'll use something like 5 or 10 meters. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to check the distance. Okay, and distance 2. Okay, now it gives me target, but I'll have to change this to enemy because that's the parameter name I used in my function. Okay, if hero distance to enemy is less than, I don't know, let's try 10 meters. Okay, I'll just put 10. If I find that this is true, in other words, the guy attacking me is less than 10 meters away, okay, then I need to check my cleave function. So I want to make sure that's ready because I think there's a downtime of maybe 10 seconds or something like that. So I'm going to put hero is ready. Cleave, they just kind of conveniently put cleave in there for me. I guess that's the only thing that works with it. And if that's ready, I'm going to cleave. And what am I going to cleave? I'm going to cleave enemy. Okay. Now we're going to, now if cleave isn't ready, we want to do something else. Right? So I'll put my else statement in there, and that's, I want to attack. Right? I want to attack my enemy. Because if cleave isn't ready, then I certainly want to do something else. As a last resort, I have to do something, otherwise he's just going to keep attacking me. That's it. That's our function. All right, so you'll notice again, all I'm doing here is using the parameter enemy. Okay, so in my while loop, which I'm going to code next, you're going to see that I'm going to pass it some data. I'm going to pass cleaver attack, some information. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, once this information is passed, the argument is passed to this parameter enemy, then I can use it in my function. Okay, I'm going to check the distance from it. Okay, if the distance is less than 10 meters, I'm going to check my cleave function. If that's ready, I'll use it. Otherwise, I'm just going to attack. Now, the second thing I need to do here is I need to define my while loop, my game loop. Okay, so I normally code functions above my while loop, above my game loop. Okay, so I'm going to then start my game loop. Okay, and then the first thing I'm going to do is I want to see if there's an enemy. So I'm going to do that. Okay, find nearest enemy. And if I find the enemy, I'm going to put him into this variable called enemy. All right. Now, once I do, I can't assume that I'm going to always have an enemy. I need to check it. In the beginning, they were assuming that there's an enemy, but we can't do that anymore. Code Combat is going to give us more and more responsibility. So I need to first check if there's an enemy. So I'm just going to use my if statement, if enemy. Now, if I find an enemy, what would I want to do? Okay, I want to call my function. So all I have to do is just copy my function name, including the parentheses and the parameter if there is any, and all I'm going to do is just call the function. So this is going to keep repeating. I'm going to constantly be looking for an enemy, and if I find one, I'm going to then call my function. Now, this is crucial. My calling statement on line 13, which is just simply the function name that I want to run, followed by the parentheses, and if I'm passing any data that needs to go inside of here, if I have an enemy, then this enemy variable is going to be populated with some information. I'm going to need to pass that that argument, that variable, up to my function cleaver attack. So I call it here, cleaver attack, pass it enemy inside the parentheses, the enemy variable. Cleaver attack is going to receive it. It's going to receive it in this parameter. This is the parameter that the function is going to accept. And I called it enemy. Again, you can call it something else. These can be completely different names. Okay, it's expecting to receive one parameter, which is what I'm passing it, one piece of data, gets the data, and then it's able to do stuff with that data inside of the function. So let's just run this and see if this works. Okay, now it didn't work. The reason is maybe I need to look at how maybe line 4 might be the problem. It could be that maybe I need to reduce this. Maybe I'm checking too much. Maybe I'm not attacking the enemy soon enough. So let me reduce this. I'll reduce this to 5. Okay, let me reduce that. Now, even I think my code is correct. It might be that I need to check. Maybe I'm checking too wide of an area and it's wasting time. So maybe I'll just reduce this to 5 meters instead. So if enemy is less than 5 meters, because if it's less than 10 meters, that means he's going to be wasting more time. He's going to have to attack a larger area. So maybe if I reduce this to 5 meters, it'll work better. Let me try it. Okay. That might work. Okay, my code was correct. It's just that it was one of the thing that I was checking. I was just probably checking too far an area. So I have to, sometimes even though your code is correct, you have to go back in and try to look at and see what's happening. And you may have to troubleshoot that way. So there are different kinds of errors that we can have in coding. We can have our just plain old simple syntax errors, or we can have maybe logic errors. And that was a logic error. I was checking too wide of an area, and I think it was wasting time, and the hero was getting attacked more than he should have. Okay, so hopefully this is going to help. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks.